Chapter 161. Jumping down from the cave to the bottom of the valley, Xiaoyan's gaze swept across the valley, and he found a small thatched cottage where the oil lamp was still lit. Outside the house, a graceful white figure sat on a chair, leaning against the door, and by the light of the lamp, she was engrossed in a seven-colored scroll, head bowed. Seemingly hearing the sound of approaching footsteps, Xianxia frowned, took her eyes away from the scroll, and looked at the teenage figure walking towards her under the moonlight. She couldn't help but smile. Finished cultivating. The food in the room is still warm. Hearing the soft, gentle words, Xiaoyan felt a slight stirring in his heart. These words were just like a wife waiting for her husband to return, the tender words containing anticipation and care. A gentle expression appeared on his face. Xiaoyan walked closer and sat down next to Xiaoxian, tilting his head to look at the seven-colored poison classic in her hand. Then his eyes swept over her beautiful face. A moment later, he seemed to notice something, frowned, and with a slight sigh, reached out his hand, gently touching the trace of black powder near her rosy lips, and shook his head with a bitter smile. Looking at Xiaoxian's state, it was clear that she had consumed poison again during the time he was cultivating. Seeing Xiaoyan's action, Xiaoxian first blushed, then seeing his finger touch the black powder, she immediately looked away in panic, and then quickly took out a white silk handkerchief from her person to carefully wipe the powder off Xiaoyan's fingertip. Perhaps I have to leave tomorrow. As Xiaoxian wiped the powder, Xiaoyan suddenly spoke. Her jade hand suddenly stiffened, but after a moment, it returned to normal. Xiaoxian slightly nodded and said softly, "You've been here for so long, it is time to leave." "Where will you go after leaving this place?" Xiaoyan asked with a smile, breaking the silent atmosphere. "I think after leaving the Jiama Empire, I will go to the Chuyun Empire to take a look and then travel all over the continent." Xiaoxian tried to force a smile as she spoke. Source of the story, Chuyun Full. Chuyun Empire. Muttering the name in his heart, Xiaoyan once again smiled bitterly. Even though he had never been to that empire, he still knew a few things about the Chuyun Empire. In that place, the number of poison masters was greater than in any other empire. "I will go to the Tager Desert to continue my cultivation. That place is the eastern border of the Jiama Empire. To get to the Chuyun Empire, you have to go through the western border. Therefore, tomorrow we will have to part ways." Xiaoyan patted his forehead and looked up at the starry sky as he spoke. Slightly nodding, Xiaoxian was clearly a little dejected and said in a low voice, "Then I hope you take care. After tomorrow's farewell, I don't know if we will ever meet again. Maybe I won't be able to return later. Well, but it's not certain. If one day I cause widespread fury, haha, I will return to this small valley, waiting for the calamity of my poison body destiny to end." Watching the sadly turning away Xiaoxian, Xiaoyan pursed his lips, shook her head, and maintained silence again. She didn't tell Xiaoyan that if the calamitous poison body matures, the toxins within her body will occasionally cause the owner's mind to become slightly disordered. If she were trapped in that state, Xiaoxian could not guarantee that she wouldn't do something terrifying. Lightly shaking her head, Xiaoxian pondered for a while. And suddenly, under Xiaoyan's confused gaze, she got up and walked into the thatched house, meticulously wrapping a sachet and a small jade bottle. "The thing inside here is called soul shedding." She handed over the jade bottle in her hand, and said sternly, "This poison does not distinguish between friend and foe. When you use it, it's best to take the antidote I prepared, otherwise your own eyes will be sealed as well." Withdrawing his hand awkwardly, Xiaoyan carefully put these two items away. Perhaps one day, he would truly need to use them. After handing these things over to Xiaoyan, Xiaoxian rummaged around and took out another jade bottle, which she handed to Xiaoyan and said, the Tagar Desert is the territory of the Medusa snake people. They are most skilled. Bottle, which was still a little warm, Xiaoyan smiled. Although this antidote pill was not of much use to an alchemist like him, Xiaoxian's sentiment truly touched him. All right. I've given you all the things I have. Don't think about exploiting anything more. Xiaoxian said jokingly to Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan nodded with a smile, reached out his hand, and a small jade bottle appeared in his palm. The jade bottle contained 7 qi recovery pills, which Xiaoyan had left over after his cultivation. Holding up the jade bottle, Xiaoyan offered it to Xiaoxian and said with a smile, "Have you ever seen a medicinal pill while living in Xingshan town?" Hearing this, Xiaoxian's agile eyes brightened. She stared intently at the jade bottle in Xiaoyan's hand and said, "Is this a medicinal pill inside?" A gift for you." Smiling and nodding, Xiaoyan tossed it to Xiaoxian, and she quickly and carefully caught it. "Be careful. What if it drops and breaks?" After catching the jade bottle, Xiaoxian glanced at it, gently reprimanding Xiaoyan, then quickly opened the lid of the bottle, slowly poured out a blue-green medicinal pill, and brought it to her slender nose to lightly sniff. The fresh medicinal fragrance made Xiaoxian a little intoxicated and sour. This was what she had pursued for many years. But sadly, in the end, she could only smell poison. "Is this a medicinal pill? It truly cannot be compared to the things I make by simply fusing medicinal ingredients with ordinary flame." Looking at the smooth and splendid surface of the medicinal pill, Xiaoxian sighed and said helplessly, "All right. Giving you a medicinal pill is not to discourage you. This medicinal pill is called Qi Recovery Pill. It can quickly restore Do Qi in the body. When fighting, with the assistance of the Qi Recovery Pill, the chance of victory will be quite a bit higher." Seeing Xiaoxian's regretful look, Xiaoyan shook his head and said, "No wonder you were able to hold on for so long during the last fight with Mushi. So you had this kind of treasure." Xiaoxian accepted the jade bottle without reservation, and said with a long laugh. Xiaoyan smiled and didn't dwell on this issue anymore. He leaned against the door, quietly looking at the starry sky. Affected by the silent atmosphere, Xiaoxian also became silent. Her arm rested lightly on her slender legs, and her agile pupils blinked slightly as she looked up at the night sky. The captivating moonlight close to each other and slowly drift into sleep. When Xiaoyan woke up the next day, he found himself on the bed without knowing when he was moved there. Tilting his head and sweeping his gaze across the empty room, he shook his head vigorously, chasing away the sleepiness, then sat up and walked out of the small room. Stepping out of the room, Xiaoyan discovered that the blue eagle was slowly circling in the sky above the small valley. The sound of the eagle echoed continuously, as if it also knew that it had to leave this place today. "You're awake." Just as Xiaoyan was looking around expectantly, a clear voice suddenly came from the left. Turning his head, Xiaoyan saw a basket of flowers and medicinal ingredients in Xiaoxian's hand. He couldn't help but shake his head and smile. He reached into his chest and took out a storage ring he had obtained in Wutan City, took 2 steps forward, grasped Xiaoxian's jade hand, put the ring on her hand, and said with a smile, "Consider it a parting gift before we say goodbye. With it, you can store quite a few things." Wearing the storage ring on her hand, Xiaoxian smiled. Although she knew the item was quite valuable, she did not refuse. She carefully put the basket of flowers and medicinal ingredients, along with a ginseng root, into the storage ring, and then put the 7-colored poison classic and as good as this. "Haha, I prepared everything 2 days ago." Xiaoyan proudly raised the finger wearing the storage ring, and said with a smile. Her beautiful eyes stared at the smiling Xiaoyan. Xiaoxian wrinkled her delicate little nose and exhaled. The bamboo flute gently touched her rosy lips, and she softly blew. The faint sound echoed all the way to the sky. Hearing the sound of the flute, the blue eagle in the sky immediately swooped down. Its wings flapped, blowing away some grass around Xiaoyan and Xiaoxian, and then it lay down in front of Xiaoxian. Let's go. Range, outside the mountain range. Standing on the mountaintop, Xiaoyan looked up at the blue eagle circling high above, raised his hand, and waved at the white-clothed woman sitting on the eagle's back and said with a loud laugh, Xiaoxian, let's part ways here. We will meet again if fate allows. Xiaoyan, take care. Looking down intently at the boy on the mountainside, Xiaoxian smiled, a smile that seemed forced. Finally, she waved her hand, controlled the blue eagle to turn around. The blue eagle let out a loud cry and flew towards the western sky. Standing on the mountaintop, Xiaoyan's gaze followed until the faint blue figure disappeared on the horizon, then he slowly breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't know when they would meet again in the future and what the feeling of reunion would be like. His face was momentarily lonely, but a moment later, Xiaoyan shook his head, pushing the sadness away. Standing on the mountaintop for a long time, Xiaoyan waited until his mood returned to calm, then he put the heavy ruler on his back, turned around, and walked towards the foot of the mountain. Xiaoyan's current location was not within the range of Qingshan town. This kind of small town was not uncommon beside the magical beast mountain range. The closest city to Xiaoyan at this moment was a huge city located in the eastern part of the Jiama Empire, much larger in scale than Wuten City. Considering its overall strength, this city, named Black Rock City, could be ranked among the top of all the huge cities in the Jiama Empire. And Xiaoyan's main objective was to quickly get to Black Rock City, because only this kind of huge city was equipped with an Imperial flight transport team. After all, the magical beast mountain range and the eastern border were too far apart. If Xiaoyan were to walk there, it would probably take 4 to 5 months. But Xiaoyan did not have time to waste at the moment, so he had to go to Black Rock City and take a flying beast to the Imperial border. Of course, Xiaoyan could also fly directly using the purple cloud wings, but even though he had advanced to a Master, flying across half of the Jiama Empire was impossible. Furthermore, using the purple cloud wings for flight easily draws attention. The Jiama Empire is so large, and there are quite a few hidden powerful experts. He didn't want to create unnecessary trouble for himself. Why? Because of time. As he said, the thing he currently lacked the most was time. Coming down from the mountaintop, Xiaoyan went to a nearby small town. After resting and recovering, he hired the fastest carriage, and then continuously urged the horse to rush towards Black Rock. Black Rock City could be vaguely seen. Standing on the carriage, Xiaoyan looked at the city reflecting the brilliant red of the sunset and sighed. You are reading the story copied from Thien. Full. The carriage drew closer, and Xiaoyan then discovered that the city had very large walls, completely built of black rock. Listening to the old coachman, he said that the city wall had once been attacked by 2 Dou kings combined, and yet it hadn't even shaken. Thus the level of defense of the city wall could be seen to be incredibly strong. After paying the tax at the city gate, the carriage smoothly entered. Passing through the somewhat dark passage of the city wall, the view brightened a moment later. The noisy sound of people talking strongly hit his ears, catching Xiaoyan unprepared, and his head felt a little dizzy. Looking at the old coachman's smiling, squinted eyes, Xiaoyan quickly paid the fare, then swaggered out of the carriage and stood blankly at the start of the street. Having been accustomed to the peaceful life in the secluded valley, Xiaoyan suddenly didn't know what to do as he looked at the crowded people around him. First, find a place to stay overnight. I wonder if this Black Rock City has an alchemist guild. If so, it's best to go and test to see if you can reach tier 2. Yao Lao's voice suddenly rang out. Go to the alchemist guild. Xiaoyan was stunned and said in surprise, "Wouldn't that expose my identity as an alchemist?" Hearing this, Yao Lao was speechless for a moment. Then after a long while, he said with a wry smile, "Did I ever tell you to hide your identity as an alchemist? You chose to hide it yourself. I know you don't like fame, but you must know that the reason alchemists are feared is not because they know how to concoct medicinal pills, but because they have a huge network of connections, and the connection point of this network is an alchemist. After all, many powerful experts want medicinal pills, and to get medicinal pills, they must petition an alchemist. To gain this personal favor, if an alchemist encounters trouble, isn't it the best opportunity for powerful experts? I was once sought for revenge by someone back then. The opponent was 1 Dou Zong, 3 Dou Kings, and 5 Dou Emperors. Want to know what happened next?" The words suddenly stopped there, and Yao Lao said with a smile, "The most crucial part was blocked." Xiaoyan helplessly shook his head, and had to ask, "What happened in the end?" "Then I used a soul transmission." "Ah, you'll know about this later." Then 3 Dou Zongs, 8 Dou Kings, 12 Dou Emperors, 18 Dou Spirits, and other things I don't remember clearly, arrived. What was the result? I'm sure you can imagine. Yao Lao said with a long laugh. His footsteps suddenly stopped. Xiaoyan slowly raised his head, inhaled a sharp breath of cold air. 3 Dou Zongs, 8 Dou Kings, 12 Dou Emperors. This terrifying lineup could probably destroy an empire. Do alchemists truly possess such great ability? So exposing your identity as an alchemist a little bit is not harmful. It seems to make some sense. So tomorrow I'll go to the Alchemist Guild and try to see if I can reach Tier 2. Still a little confused, Xiaoyan also. To worry about. Also, if there's time, go to the auction house. If there are Tier 3 magical cores, try your best to bid for them. Yao Lao pondered and said, although we haven't found any kind. Refining the blood lotus pill. Xiaoyan slowly walked down the street, his eyes casually sweeping across the surrounding shops as he asked. Yes. To consume a heavenly flame, you need at least 3 types of materials. And the blood lotus pill is one of them. The blood lotus pill is the item that helps you get close to the heavenly flame. Without it, let alone a small Dou master like you, even a Dou Emperor strong expert wouldn't dare to easily approach a heavenly flame. Ice Spirit Cold Spring. If the blood lotus pill is an external protection item, then the Ice Spirit Cold Spring protects your internal body from being incinerated into nothingness by the heat of the heavenly flame during the refinement. The last type is called Core Nurturing Stone. This item can open, including your body, will be incinerated in an instant, excluding this kind of void space. However, the Core Nurturing Stone is a bit difficult to find. Furthermore, it has some connection with storage rings. This kind of Core Nurturing Stone can only be found in the core of the highest grade storage stone. You must know that high-grade storage stone is used to create high-grade storage rings, so its rarity can be understood. Moreover, the Core Nurturing Stone exists within high-grade storage stone at a very low ratio. You should know the rarity of the Core Nurturing Stone. Now, right? Xiaoyan pursed his mouth, his expression blank. After a long while, he shook his head with a bitter smile. Ice Spirit Cold Spring and Core Nurturing Stone. I've never heard of these 2 things. Where do you want me to find them? You don't need to worry about the Core Nurturing Stone. I still have some left over from when I searched for the heavenly flame back then. So, the only things you lack now are the Ice Spirit Cold Spring and the Tier 3 magical core. Yao Lao said with a smile. Where can I find the Ice Spirit Cold Spring? Xiaoyan asked dryly. In extremely cold or extremely hot places. Yao Lao said with a smile. It can also be found in extremely hot places. Xiaoyan opened his eyes wide and asked with some surprise. That is the principle. Yao Lao nodded and said with a smile, of course, if your luck is good, perhaps you can obtain it from an auction house, but the probability should not be high. After all, as long as people understand, they will recognize its preciousness, and it generally won't be easily brought out. If I don't have these things, but I happen to encounter a heavenly flame, what should I do? Xiao Yan's eyes darted around as he asked. Then you must retreat and give up this opportunity, no matter how precious it is. Without these 3 items, touching it means certain. Selected as the most suitable aids for refining the heavenly flame after countless experiments. To be frank, if you could formulate materials that increase the probability of refining the heavenly flame, many alchemists would eagerly bring money to exchange for it. Yao Lao's voice carried a hint of pride, suggesting that these 3 materials truly took a lot of his effort. Shaking his head. With a bitter smile, Xiao Yan's footsteps stopped in front of a luxurious hotel, and he sighed, all right, I will try my best to gather the Tier 3 magical core and the ice spirit cold spring. But whether I can obtain them, I can't guarantee. For now, let's go inside and rest for the night. Tomorrow, we'll go to the Alchemist Guild, and then visit the auction house. Hopefully, they won't disappoint us. The second day, as the sun's rays just touched the ground, Xiao Yan left the hotel, conveniently asking for the location of the Alchemist Guild before going out. Walking early in the morning on the street, Xiao Yan recalled the surprised and flattering expression of the boss when he asked for the Alchemist Guild's location, and he secretly felt a bit amused. And sighed with emotion. It seemed that the noble status of an alchemist had truly deeply penetrated the minds of everyone on the Douchi continent. Otherwise, when mentioning the Alchemist Guild, these people wouldn't reveal such expressions of reverence. Black Rock City truly lived up to its reputation as one of the top cities in the Jiama Empire. Although it was early morning, the streets were already a scene of prosperity and bustling noise. Moreover, well-dressed imperial guards occasionally passed by, the sound of their armor clashing echoing in the morning sky, clear like the ringing of bells. Following the route the hotel boss had pointed out, Xiao Yan slowly walked through several intersections, circling for a long time, then stopped and looked up at the silver building before his eyes. The architecture here had a somewhat unique shape. Its general appearance resembled an ordinary medicine cauldron, with the surrounding windows designed like the normal fire vents of a medicine cauldron. On the top of the cauldron was a huge lid, covering the entire building. His gaze paused outside the building, on the purple plaque made of sandalwood. 5 large characters vaguely contained an ancient style, radiating a faint golden light. Alchemist Guild. Softly murmuring the phrase, Xiao Yan tilted his head, and saw that most people passing this building briefly showed a hint of awe toward the high plaque. Of course, there were also some passers-by who cast surprised glances at Xiao Yan, who was standing blankly in front of the Alchemist Guild's door. Ignoring the surrounding gazes, Xiao Yan's hand gently brushed the black heavy ruler on his back, and then he quickly walked toward the Alchemist Guild. Approaching the entrance, 2 guards who had already noticed the young man carrying a heavy weapon in front of them reached out to stop him, and said loudly, "Little brother, this is the Alchemist Guild. Do you want to enter? Do you have a letter provided by your mentor?" A letter of introduction. Hearing this, Xiao Yan was stunned, and asked with some confusion in his heart, "Master, what is a letter of introduction?" "I don't know either. Each empire on the Douchi continent has its own alchemist guild, and the rules are not the same. I rarely came to the Jiama Empire before, so I'm not clear what that thing is." Inside the ring, Yao Lao also said in surprise. Shaking his head helplessly, even Xiao Yan was a bit distressed. A scent of fragrant wind suddenly wafted from behind. He sensed the owner of the fragrant wind approaching, and had no intention of avoiding her. Slightly frowning, Xiao Yan had to move aside from the doorway. As soon as Xiao Yan stepped aside, a graceful figure stood in front of him, then without paying attention to Xiao Yan on the side, she turned her head back and said gently, "Master, hurry up a bit." "Ai. Girl, it's still early. Morning, why are you rushing so much? Maybe that old fellow Fa hasn't woken up yet." A somewhat helpless old voice came from behind. Xiaoyan turned his head, his gaze sweeping toward the leisurely walking old man. His eyes darted around, then stopped at the badge on the old man's chest. He only saw a simple medicine cauldron, on which were 4 silver wave patterns. Tier 4 Alchemist. Startled in his heart, Xiaoyan once again turned his head to look at the purple-clothed young girl standing not far away. The girl was only about 20 years old. Her beautiful cheeks were captivating, and her figure was exquisite, but her development was surprisingly mature and plump, accentuated by a tight-fitting purple alchemist uniform. She looked very noble and dignified. After all, an alchemist's attire could not be casually worn. Although she wore the alchemist's attire, there was no badge on her chest. The girl had long hair, tied back with a purple ribbon, cascading down to her hips. Whenever she moved, her hair gently brushed back and forth over her small hips, extremely captivating to the eyes of men. This translation might not be very literal. I get messed up whenever I read about beautiful women, please be understanding, smiley face. Seemingly noticing Xiaoyan's assessing gaze, the girl turned her head, saw Xiaoyan's ordinary attire, and couldn't help but furrow her brow. Looking at the 2 guards, she huffed and said, "Move aside. Why are you blocking the door like that?" He. Miss Lin Fei is here today to take the Tier 1 Alchemist examination, right? Grandmaster Otto truly lives up to his reputation as one of the strongest alchemists in Black Rock City. In just 3 short years, he has made Miss become a true alchemist. Although the girl's voice was a bit impolite, the 2 large men quickly smiled apologetically, and then moved aside to create a passage. "Don't worry. When I officially become an alchemist, I definitely won't treat you unfairly," the girl said with a long laugh, then casually glanced at the ordinary clothed young man next to her. Although her mentor and father frequently taught her that one cannot judge a person by appearance alone, after assessing this young man, she still didn't find anything unusual. Speaking of handsomeness, there were people more handsome than him lined up for a long distance in Black Rock City. Speaking of strength, even if he was a 7-star Do practitioner or above, it was nothing special in her eyes. In Black Rock City, even a Do master had to address her as Miss Lin Fei. Slowly retracting her gaze, Lin Fei slightly shook her head, and finally moved her attention away from Xiaoyan. In this first meeting, she didn't exactly look down on him, but she also didn't take him to heart, simply treating him as an ordinary passerby. "Ai, let's go, girl. You absolutely must succeed today, or else that old fellow Fa will not miss this chance to tease me later." At this moment, the old man behind finally walked over, and said teasingly to the girl, "Grandmaster Otto." Seeing the old man, the 2 large men guards quickly bowed respectfully. Nodding and smiling at the 2, the old man called Grandmaster Otto took a few steps forward. His gaze suddenly stopped at Xiaoyan, who was boredly waiting on the side, and he couldn't help but be slightly stunned. He vaguely felt that the young man in front of him was somewhat unusual, but he couldn't pinpoint exactly where. "Don't worry, master. Isn't it just refining 1 medicinal pill? How can that trouble your smart disciple?" Lin Fei smiled charmingly, pulling Otto's arm, and said coquettishly. Fondly patting Lin Fei's head, Otto smiled kindly at Xiaoyan on the side, and then pulled Lin Fei into the Alchemist Guild. "Master, since when are you so friendly to strangers? This doesn't seem to be your usual personality, ah?" Walking into the guild, Lin Fei asked suspiciously. "I just have a feeling that that little fellow is a bit unusual, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Perhaps it's an illusion." Otto smiled and said casually. Hearing this, Lin Fei helplessly shook her head, and had to quickly follow Otto inside. Little brother. Have you found the letter of introduction from your mentor? Watching Otto walk into the guild, one of the large men guards smiled at Xiaoyan, with a suspicious look in his eyes, as if thinking that Xiaoyan couldn't produce it, which was actually the truth. Sorry, I don't have that. Xiaoyan helplessly shrugged his chin and said, that young lady just now didn't seem to have you check her letter of introduction either. Miss Lin Fei's mentor is Grandmaster Otto, a Tier 4 alchemist. Haven't you even heard of that name? Hearing Xiaoyan's question, the two large men looked at him as if they were looking at an idiot. Sighing helplessly, Xiaoyan slowly raised his hand. What are you trying to do? Seeing Xiaoyan's movement, the two large men instantly changed color, reaching for their weapons and shouting loudly. Ignoring the two of them, Xiaoyan stared intently at his hand. A mass of purple flame suddenly rose up from his palm. The heat of the purple flame caused the two men's faces to change drastically. Condensed true flame. Tier 4 alchemist. The sound of shock rang out, spoken with disbelief from the mouths of the two. Having frequently guarded the alchemist guild, they naturally knew condensing true flame could only be done by a Tier 4 alchemist, but if the person in front was an old man, they might still be calm, but the person in front was clearly only a young man about 20 years old. Sorry, I am not a Tier 4 alchemist. I just have the ability to summon it. Many passers-by who heard the shouts of the two guards rushed over, and seeing the flame in Xiaoyan's hand, they were immediately shaken and inhaled several breaths of cold air. Seeing this scene, Xiaoyan helplessly shook his head, then waved his hand, extinguishing the purple flame, and said to the two guards, "Can I enter now?" Yes, little brother. No, Your Excellency, please enter." The two men glanced at each other, quickly bent down, and said respectfully. Looking at the crowd being drawn and standing at the entrance, Xiaoyan gave a bitter smile in his heart. Who told him he was unknown? Not only did he not have a badge, but he also wasn't wearing an alchemist's attire. Sighing, Xiaoyan put his hand into his robe, and then slowly stepped into the building that housed arguably the noblest profession in Black Rock City. Walking into the Alchemist Guild, a faint fragrance wafted, making people's minds feel somewhat refreshed. There were not many staff in the main hall, only a few people quietly doing their work. Seemingly hearing footsteps, some people looked up, their eyes glancing at the young man carrying a huge black ruler on his shoulder that almost touched the ground. A hint of confusion flashed in their eyes, and then they buried themselves back in their work. They didn't think anyone would be bold enough to cause trouble at the Alchemist Guild. Standing in the quiet main hall for a moment, Xiaoyan shook his head. Just as he was about to find someone to ask how to get an alchemist badge, a light blue-clothed woman quickly walked out from the back and then quickly approached Xiaoyan. "Sir, judging by your appearance, this must be your first time at the Black Rock City Alchemist Guild." Walking up to Xiaoyan, the blue-clothed woman's beautiful eyes swept over him as she asked with a smile. Assessing the blue-clothed woman in front of him, her appearance was exquisite and truly captivating. Xiaoyan smiled and said, "It is indeed my first time here. I want to apply for an alchemist badge." "Oh, so you are also an alchemist?" Hearing this, the blue-clothed woman was clearly startled, her beautiful eyes once again swept across Xiaoyan's body, and she asked in surprise, Could you tell me the procedure?" Without minding the surprise in the woman's eyes, Xiaoyan nodded with a smile and said, "Please come this way." Seeing Xiaoyan nod in confirmation, the blue-clothed woman was slightly startled. Her face clearly showed a hint of increased respect. She retreated a few steps, walked to the counter, and looked at Xiaoyan with a smile. Taking out a yellowish piece of parchment from the counter, the blue-clothed woman's fair hand elegantly held a pen, and she looked up at Xiaoyan and said, "Sir, please state your name, age, your mentor's name. I'll have to ask you to write that down as well." Xiao Yan, 19 years old. Mentor. Yao Lao. Xiao Yan pondered for a moment and then said with a smile. Sir is unexpectedly so young. Hearing Xiao Yan's age, Ye Fei, assuming the name from the context, couldn't help but sigh softly in her heart in awe. She smiled and gave a small compliment. Her willow-like eyebrows suddenly furrowed, she pondered for a moment, and then said with some embarrassment, Sir, your mentor's name does not seem to be recorded in our Alchemist Guild's records. My old man likes to live in seclusion, so he has never been recorded. How is that? Is it absolutely necessary to record the name? If so, forget it. Then, frowning, Xiao Yan shook his head and turned to leave. He hadn't expected it to be so troublesome. Sir, please wait a moment. Seeing Xiao Yan leaving, Ye Fei quickly said. Although your mentor's name is not recorded, as long as you pass the examination, you can still receive the badge as usual. Hearing this, Xiao Yan finally stopped, sighed softly in his heart, and turned back to look at Ye Fei with a smile. Quickly tidying up the items on the table, Ye Fei held the registration form in her hand, then raised her hand and said, Sir, please follow me. If you pass the tier examination, then you can successfully receive the badge. Are you planning to take the Tier 1 Alchemist examination? Flipping through the documents in her hand, Ye Fei casually asked with a smile. No. Tier 2. Her walking steps suddenly stopped, nearly causing Xiao Yan to bump into her, but he stopped in time, and immediately looked suspiciously at the graceful figure in front of him. You said you want to take the Tier 2 Alchemist examination. Turning around, Ye Fei's small rosy lips slightly parted, and she stared at Xiao Yan in surprise. 19 years old and already taking the Tier 2 Alchemist examination. This seemed to be the first time in the Jiama Empire's Alchemist Guild. Is there a problem? Slightly nodding, Xiao Yan said calmly. You are reading the story at https://truyenful.vn. No problem. Recovering herself, Ye Fei quickly shook her head. The gaze with which she looked at Xiao Yan became even more respectful, and she said softly, Sir Xiao Yan. Just call me Xiao Yan. Shaking his head, Xiao Yan said with a light smile. All right. Ye Fei had been in the Alchemist Guild for If that's the case, you must first take the Tier 1 Alchemist examination. If you successfully advance, then you can take the Tier 2 Alchemist examination. Ye Fei smiled, explaining the examination procedure to Xiao Yan. Let's go with that then. Hearing this, Xiao Yan was stunned, and nodded helplessly. Smiling, Ye Fei slowed her pace, and a moment later stopped in front of a large door. Outside the large door, 4 heavily armed large men were guarding. His gaze swept over the chests of the 4 large men, and Xiao Yan felt a chill in his heart. He discovered that all 4 of these people were 9-star Dou practitioners, and one of them had a stable aura, indicating that he had been at this tier for a very long time, and could break through to the ranks of a Dou master at any time. Uncle Taya, has the examination inside started yet? Ye Fei held Xiao Yan's documents in her hand, and asked the large man. Not yet, but it's about to. Did you bring Mun in front of him? All right, let's go in then. Carefully checking the documents on the registration form along with the seal, Taya then took out a black armband from his person, on which was a large character 5, this is your registration number. Don't lose it. Taking the armband, Xiao Yan put it on his arm, and thanked Taya with a smile. Xiao Yan. You can only enter the area below by yourself. According to the rules, we cannot casually go inside. Seeing that the procedure was complete, Ye Fei said with a light smile. Thank you. Nodding, Xiao Yan cupped his hands to the group, and then quickly entered the large door. The main hall inside was wide open and bright as day. At this moment, there were quite a few people in the main hall. The sounds of whispering, laughing, etc., continuously rang out. Xiaoyan swept his gaze over the chests of these people, and surprisingly found that most of them were alchemists. Among the crowd, Xiaoyan unexpectedly found 2 Tier 4 alchemists. One of them was Grandmaster Otto, whom he had just witnessed. As for the other, listening to the greetings of the people around, Xiaoyan learned that he was the president of the Alchemist Guild, Fa. In the center of the main hall, more than a dozen different stone platforms were meticulously arranged. On each platform were complete sets of alchemy equipment. And on the platforms, 7 young people were waiting anxiously, and the girl named Lin Fei was also among them. Fa, where is Xue Mei? Why hasn't she come out yet? The examination time is almost here. Otto's gaze swept towards the back, and he said to Fa, who was laughing nearby. Don't rush, don't rush. This is Xue Mei's first examination. Minutes left. If she still doesn't come out, even you, the president, can't extend the waiting time for the examination. Smiling, Fa turned his head, his gaze sweeping across the main hall, finally stopping in front of a young man. His eyes looked at the armband on the young man, and he couldn't help but ask with some surprise, "Little fellow, are you also here to take the alchemist examination?" Seeing so many peers for the first time in his life, Xiaoyan was somewhat excited in his heart. Hearing Fa's question, he nodded. Seeing Xiaoyan nod, Fa's eyes became even more surprised and he asked, "Little fellow, how old are you?" 19. Not knowing what this high-status old man meant, Xiaoyan had to tell the truth. Oh? Hearing Xiaoyan's answer, not only Fa but also Otto next to him shifted his gaze. After seeing Xiaoyan, he couldn't help but be stunned, and then asked with a chuckle, "I felt this little fellow was a bit different before. So he's an alchemist after all. But why didn't I sense anything?" Logically, it's very difficult for someone with lower strength to hide their identity from my eyes. Hearing Otto's words, Xiaoyan could only shake his head vaguely, pretending not to know. With Yao Lao protecting him, how could this old man, a Tier 4 alchemist, possibly detect anything? Fortunately, Otto didn't relentlessly pursue the matter. Seeing Xiaoyan's vague expression, he stopped asking. TSK 19. Old Otto, this little fellow seems younger than both our disciples. Ah! Fa exclaimed in praise. We'll probably have to wait for this little fellow to successfully pass the examination first. Although it's a bit shocking, Lin Fei also came to take the examination when she was 19. 2 years ago. Shaking his head, Otto said with a smile. Although he didn't mean to look down on Xiaoyan, it was unprecedented for someone only 19 years old to obtain an alchemist badge at. One must also become a Dou practitioner. Furthermore, after becoming a Dou practitioner, one who wants to become an alchemist still needs a mentor to personally teach them to initially learn the art of alchemy. And this learning period takes at least a year. In summary, for someone to become an alchemist at 19, they must have become a Dou practitioner at 18 or earlier. But this kind of cultivation talent is even rarer than the special spiritual talent of an alchemist. Therefore, even though Fa and Otto were knowledgeable and experienced, it was difficult for them to believe that the young man in front of them could successfully pass the examination. Oh, come on. Don't think I don't know. When you secretly let Xue Mei take the examination that year, didn't she also blow up the medicine cauldron? Looking at the two, Xiaoyan helplessly shook his head. Just as he opened his mouth to ask, an icy cold voice rang out from behind. "Master! I'm sorry, I'm late." The cold, yet alluring voice, like the sound of melting ice on a snowy mountaintop, echoed clearly and magically, somewhat pleasing to the ear. At least more than half of the People Xiaoyan noticed in the main hall turned their passionate gaze behind him. Pursing his mouth, Xiaoyan also slowly turned his face, looking at the silver-robed woman elegantly entering from the large door, a trace of confusion and admiration flashing in his eyes. At the main entrance, a slender figure appeared. Her appearance was as pure and clean as ice on a snow mountain. With an exquisite face, delicate eyebrows, and a graceful, slender body, clad in a silver dress that, together with her skin like warm jade, added to her cold demeanor. What was even more surprising was her silver hair that extended all the way to her waist. This silver hair was not the result of a disease or mutation, but rather as soft as silver threads, gently fluttering, giving her a peculiar allure. After a careful assessment, Xiaoyan couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. No wonder she could make the eyes of most people in the main hall burn so intensely. Compared to her, the girl named Lin Fei lacked a certain ethereal quality, especially the pure and gorgeous silver hair, which caused some women to feel a hint of jealousy. His gaze swept past, and Xiaoyan slowly withdrew his focus, slightly leaning his body to consciously step aside and yield the path. The silver-robed girl slowly walked in, glanced at Xiaoyan on the side, and then proceeded toward Fa Lane. Ku Fat Lawn Cock. Standing to the side, Xiaoyan smelled a faint fragrance wafting from her body, and he sighed inwardly, a masterpiece. Master, the silver-robed girl slightly revealed a smile on her face as she walked up to Fa Lane Ku. In that instant, the smile was like an ice lotus blooming on a snow mountain, adding a stunning brilliance to her beauty. Ai, you finally arrived. That old fellow Otto has been impatient for a while now. Fa Lane Ku looked at his prized disciple with gentle eyes and said happily. Master Otto, the silver-robed girl turned her head and slightly bowed to Otto, who was standing beside Fa Lane Ku. Shui to et me, my girl, is still polite compared to cough. All right, we should begin. Otto smiled and nodded, quickly correcting himself as he glanced at his own disciple, who was pouting. Slightly nodding, Shui carefully surveyed the surroundings, and then walked into the stone platform area. She and Lin Fei were separated by exactly one table. The two faced each other and sparks practically flew. It seemed they were not fond of each other. Humph. Just try not to blow up your cauldron. It's fine if you fail, but don't affect me. Lin Fei lightly patted the medicine cauldron in front of her, her delicate nose slightly upturned, and she lightly snorted. I think, even without interference, you might still fail. And the possibility seems quite high, Shui said with a faint smile. Although she appeared cold, it was still difficult for her to maintain composure in front of her rival of many years. Cough. That's enough. Seeing the tension between the two, which was already strong even though the assessment hadn't begun, Fa Lane Ku shook his head helplessly. He then smiled at Xiaoyan, who was standing on the side, and said, that young man. You go over there too. I am really looking forward to your performance. But if you fail, it's not a problem at all, you still have plenty of time. The implication in his tone seemed to indicate that he didn't hold much hope for Xiaoyan passing the assessment. Shrugging, Xiaoyan looked in the direction Fa Lane Ku pointed and couldn't help but shake his head. That position was exactly between those two explosive warehouses, referring to the two feuding girls. In the midst of their heated argument, the two girls' eyes couldn't help but briefly glance at Xiaoyan's face. Although Xiaoyan was not the type of peerless handsome man whose looks would immediately capture a woman's attention, he was not unpleasant to look at. Thus, neither of them voiced any objection. After a bored glance, they withdrew their eyes and began to inspect the alchemical instruments on the stone platform. Shaking his head, a recurring action in the story, Xiaoyan ignored the jealous glances of the young alchemists nearby and slowly walked to the stone platform. His gaze swept over both sides. Seeing that the two beauties were not paying attention to him, he comforted himself inwardly and began to inspect the tools on the stone platform. The basic requirement for a first-tier alchemist was to independently refine a type of medicinal pill. The specific pill could be designated by the Alchemist Guild. Xiaoyan picked up a piece of sheepskin on the platform and looked at it. This formula was for a power accumulation pill, a medicinal pill that could increase the user's strength for a short period of time. This type of pill was only barely considered average among first-tier pills. However, for novices, it was undoubtedly a bit difficult. Holding the formula for the power accumulation pill, Xiaoyan looked to both sides and found that almost everyone had been given a different formula. The two girls next to him seemed quite confident about the pill they had to refine. "Is this old man deliberately making things difficult for me?" he muttered to himself. His gaze briefly flicked toward Fa Lane Ko, who was smiling in the distance, then shook his head, and returned his attention to the stone platform. The story you are reading is sourced from https://triunful.vn. On the stone platform, there were only 3 portions of the ingredients required to make the power accumulation pill. If anyone failed 3 times, the assessment would be considered a failure. Next to the medicinal ingredients was a brightly colored bottle, presumably for storing the refined medicinal pill. His eyes scanned the pile of items on the stone platform. Xiaoyan slowly focused his mind. With his capability, refining this power accumulation pill wouldn't take much effort. Furthermore, with the aid of the violet flame, his pill refining was like a tiger with wings. This average first-tier alchemist pill was not worth agonizing over. Since the examiners had not yet announced the start of the assessment, Xiaoyan's eyes casually looked to both sides. With his ability, just by looking at the arrangement of their medicinal materials, he could tell what kind of pill they had to make. Wound healing pill, fire condensing pill. Why is my formula a bit more difficult? Xiaoyan complained inwardly. His power accumulation pill was significantly more challenging compared to the other 2 formulas. Damn it, these 2 old men are abusing their authority. Powerless to do anything, Xiaoyan could only fiercely slander Fa Lane Ko and Otto in his mind. Have you all finished your inspection? If so, the assessment begins. His eyes swept over the stone platform. Seeing no one speak up, Fa Lane Ko waved his hand. A surge of force shot out from his palm, striking the iron bell at the end of the main hall. Immediately, a clear bell sound rang out, echoing through the hall. Hearing the bell ring, all the examinees, except Xiaoyan, quickly pressed their hands onto the air vent of their cauldrons. Doqi surged out from their bodies, and after a series of fierce pfff sounds, a flame erupted inside the cauldrons. After the flames began to heat the cauldrons, a transparent light barrier gradually appeared outside the stone platform, enveloping all the examinees. With the appearance of the light barrier, the murmuring outside the main hall completely disappeared. Everyone focused their attention intently on the examinees inside the stone platform. Seeing that the newcomers' control was not bad, they secretly nodded. Standing on the stone platform, Xiaoyan looked around and found that the flames inside everyone's cauldrons, except for Xuemei and Lin Fei, whose flames were slightly weaker, were all pale yellow. This clearly indicated that their true strength was not below 4-star Do practitioner. Inside the stone platform, everyone had already begun refining pills. Only Xiaoyan was still looking around somewhat blankly. This feeling was like a crane among chickens. It was impossible not to draw attention. What is that young man doing? Fa Lane Ko frowned, looking at Xiaoyan with confusion. This? I don't know. Otto was equally bewildered. Did this young man not even know how to light a fire? Wouldn't that be a farce? Cough. Does he have a recommendation letter from a master? Let me see who cultivated this disciple. Fa Lane Ko waved to a subordinate. Guildmaster, he seems to not have a recommendation letter from a master, but his record states that his master is someone named Yao Lao. The subordinate read Xiaoyan's information and said with a wry smile. Yao Lao. Fa Lane Ke's eyes opened wide in confusion. He tilted his head and looked at Otto. Have you heard of this name? I've been working in the Jiama Empire for decades, and I've never heard of an alchemist qualified to take on disciples named Yao Lao. Otto's mind was equally blank regarding this unfamiliar name. Forget it. We'll ask for details when the time is up. In the current situation, I feel like that young man is mocking us. Angrily tossing the information in his hand to the subordinate next to him. Fa Lane Ke's expression was a bit ashamed. After all, this incident happened within the branch he managed. If word got out, it would certainly cause ridicule for the Alchemist Guild. While Fa Lane Ke was growing angry outside, Shui Mei and Lin Fei inside the light barrier were also somewhat surprised by this young man. This young man, do you think you are fooling around? At this moment, Xiaoyan was completely unaware that his hesitation had attracted so much attention. After pondering for a long time, he lightly sighed. His palm slowly pressed onto the air vent. And he said helplessly in his heart, forget it. What if the flame is a bit unusual? They can't exactly cut me up and study me. Comforting himself this way, the dou qi in Xiaoyan's body began to surge out, quickly passing through his meridians. Then, following his palm, a small sound was heard before it entered the cauldron. Boom! With a low thud, a violet flame instantly erupted from inside the cauldron. At the same time, outside the light barrier, Fa Lane Ke, who was slightly annoyed, was accepting a teacup from his subordinate. He had just taken a small sip when he caught sight of the violet flame erupting from Xiaoyan's cauldron in the corner of his eye. His pupils instantly widened, and with a pft sound, all the tea in his mouth was sprayed out. The tea drenched his robes, but Fa Lane Ke didn't care. His trembling hand pointed toward Xiaoyan, and he cried out in horror, losing his voice, violet flame. A heavenly flame, Ihua. Hearing his words, the main hall suddenly fell silent. All eyes turned toward Xiaoyan. Chapter 166. That guy unexpectedly summoned a purple flame. Could it be a heavenly flame? How is that possible? Inside the main hall, all the alchemists looked in shock at the purple flame blazing inside the medicine cauldron. Because of the light shield barrier isolating it, they couldn't accurately confirm it, but this type of colored flame was absolutely not a flame condensed from ordinary dou qi. Heavenly flame. Fa Ma and Otto looked at each other in shock, then lightly shook their heads. It looks a little different. Furthermore, with this little fellow's strength, it's fundamentally impossible for him to control a heavenly flame so skillfully. Otto's eyes were fixed on Xiaoyan, who was controlling his soul perception, causing the purple flame to continuously blaze, and he said in a deep voice, "It is indeed a little different. A heavenly flame is not so easily controlled." Fa Ma wiped the tea off his beard, his expression equally solemn. But why is his flame purple? Fa Ma and Otto furrowed their brows, feeling somewhat confused in their hearts. They had never heard of any flame that appeared purple, other than the refined flame of a heavenly flame. This little fellow is not simple. No wonder he dared to come and take the Tier 1 alchemist examination at such a young age, originally, this age. So he has such a foundation. Looking at the density of this purple flame, I think this little fellow's strength is definitely above a 5-star dou practitioner. His cultivation talent is truly terrifying. Slowly calming his breathing and mood, Fa Ma sighed in admiration. I said why I felt a bit strange when I first saw him. I didn't think he was actually concealing some of his strength in front of me. This little fellow is quite mysterious. Otto gently stroked his long beard, and said with a smile toward Fa Ma, "I suddenly really want to meet his mentor. I want to know who exactly he is, who can unexpectedly mentor such an outstanding disciple." Alas, compared to him, Xue Mei and Lin Fei are both weaker by a tier. Slightly nodding, Fa Ma smiled and said, "These two girls have been vying for supremacy for so many years. Now this young man called Xiaoyan has given them a wake-up call. That's good for the future, to let them know that there is always a higher mountain and a stronger person. Send out some notices to the alchemist guilds in other cities, asking them to help investigate a little, to see if there is a high-level alchemist named Yao Lao. Someone who can cultivate this kind of disciple should have a resounding reputation, not be an unknown person." Waving his hand to call an alchemist, Fa Ma instructed in a low voice. That alchemist respectfully nodded, and then quietly left the main hall. Otto only smiled slightly upon seeing this. Then he focused his gaze back into the light shield barrier. He quietly said, "Although he can skillfully control this kind of purple flame. However, refining pills is not only about the flame, soul perception and controlling the heat. The required amount of each medicinal ingredient. All those things are equally important. For now, let's continue watching." Fa Ma nodded. As a Tier 4 alchemist, he naturally knew this, so he didn't say anything more. His gaze and mind were entirely focused inside the light shield barrier, where the young man was refining the medicinal pill, without saying a word. Following their silence, the main hall also fell into tranquility again. However, the gazes of the majority of the people present were still fixed on Xiaoyan. Many people wanted to know if the young man who could control this flame, suspected to be like a heavenly flame, could maintain his outstanding performance in the next segment. Enveloped by the light shield barrier, Xiaoyan naturally had no leisure to pay attention to the turmoil in the main hall outside caused by the purple flame. His gaze simply swept across the stone platform, then unhurriedly and sequentially placed several types of medicinal ingredients into the medicine cauldron. Under the fierce control of his soul perception, the purple flame gently enveloped the medicinal ingredients as soon as they entered the medicine cauldron, like an obedient lamb. Then, it extracted the essences from the materials to refine the power accumulation pill. Xiaoyan refined the pill slowly and calmly, just like that. Inside the medicine cauldron, the first power accumulation pill was slowly taking shape. Although each stone platform inside the light shield barrier was separated into small areas by the barrier. However, Xiaoyan's purple flame was truly too peculiar. Therefore, not long after he released it, Xue Mei and Lin Fei, who were on either side of him, both noticed this and turned their heads to look. What appeared in their sight was the drifting, blazing purple flame. Their beautiful eyes suddenly widened. Following a very soft, resounding sound, the medicinal ingredients they were extracting in their cauldrons were burned to ashes due to a moment of distraction. Not overly concerned about the medicinal ingredients turning into ashes, the two girls slightly parted their rosy lips, staring blankly at Xiaoyan. Controlling the purple flame, which was both urgent and gentle, both hot and mild. After a long time, they both couldn't help but quietly gasp in their hearts. Although they did not know what kind of purple flame Xiaoyan's was, judging from the intensity of the flame, it was absolutely more difficult to control than their dark yellow douqi flame. However, judging by the young man's calm and composed manner, he had been controlling this purple flame with ease from start to finish. This level of control made both Xue Mei and Lin Fei, who were somewhat arrogant in their minds, feel a bit inadequate. Their gazes moved away from the cauldron, and finally, just like their usual clever and sharp selves, they looked toward the young man who was fully focused on the medicine cauldron. At this moment, the young man's handsome face still didn't show any sign of tension. His face was faintly reflecting the purple color from the blazing purple flame, but his calm and gentle demeanor almost made the two girls mistake him for not being a naive young man under 20, but an experienced high-level alchemist with rich refining experience. This kind of calm and composed temperament was only something Xue Mei and Lin Fei had witnessed when they were in the same place as their mentor refining pills. And now the young man in front of them made them recall that feeling. Once again, their gazes briefly hesitated in midair, both seeing a hint of defeat and a bitter smile. Alas! Their eyes once again swept over Xiaoyan. Xue Mei lightly sighed, her jade hand gently pushing back a few strands of silver hair on her forehead. Then she retracted her attention, and once again focused her mind back into the medicine cauldron. This person, he hides his depth so well. I couldn't even tell. Glancing at Xiaoyan one more time, Lin Fei quietly murmured. Previously, she had thought Xiaoyan was just a passerby, but at this moment, she had elevated him to a frighteningly talented, high-tier person worthy of her attention. Shaking her head, recalling the speed of this change in status, Lin Fei could only smile bitterly and sigh. Then she sequentially placed the spare medicinal ingredients into the medicine cauldron, beginning the final refinement. Xiaoyan, whose entire mind was focused on the medicine cauldron, naturally did not notice the two girls next to him closely observing him earlier. His eyes were only staring intently inside the medicine cauldron. While Xiaoyan was concentrating, time passed quickly. After an unknown number of times the pill tumbled inside the cauldron, it finally became smooth. Looking at the glossy surface of the pill, Xiaoyan smiled. His hand slowly withdrew from the medicine cauldron. And as his hand was pulled away, the purple flame inside the medicine cauldron also slowly dissipated. His finger gently tapped the lid of the medicine cauldron. A stream of force shot down. Xiaoyan gestured with his hand, and a light yellow medicinal pill broke through the lid and shot out, then quickly flew towards Xiaoyan. His hand quickly grabbed a jade bottle. Xiaoyan quickly held it up in front of him, and the light yellow medicinal pill was accurately collected inside. Slowly placing the jade bottle down, Xiaoyan looked up and realized that the surrounding light shield barrier had been withdrawn without him knowing, and streams of gazes were intently focused on him. Is the examination time over? Tilting his head, Xiaoyan discovered that Xue Mei and Lin Fei next to him were also staring at him, and he couldn't help but say awkwardly. Seeing Xiaoyan's somewhat embarrassed expression, Xue Mei was slightly startled. Then she smiled and nodded. Her cold voice now carrying a hint of softness. It's been a few minutes over, but Master saw that you seemed not yet finished, so he waited a little longer. Don't worry, you won't lose your examination qualification because of this. Smiling gratefully at Xue Mei, Xiaoyan looked up at Fa Ma and Otto, who were walking over with smiling eyes. Slowly walking to the stone platform, Fa Ma glanced at Xiaoyan meaningfully, and said with a long laugh, "Little fellow, you hide your depth very well." Xiaoyan spread his hands, without saying anything. You are reading the story at Trien Full www. Trien Full. Fa Ma and Otto first walked across to Xue Mei and Lin Fei's pill refining area, took out their medicinal pills, then carefully observed the quality and glossiness of the pills, nodding slightly to each other and said with a smile, "Not bad. Although the medicinal pills still lack a bit of heat control, they have met the passing standard." Hearing this, Xue Mei and Lin Fei both breathed a sigh of relief. After checking their medicinal pills, Fa Ma and Otto did not immediately check Xiaoyan's. Instead, they walked past him, took the pills of the 6 people behind them, and inspected them one by one. Among the 6, only 2 met the requirements. The remaining 4 all lowered their heads dejectedly. "Haha, you don't need to be so dejected. If not this year, there's always next year. You are young, and the one thing you have most is time." Looking at the 4 people's appearance, Fa Ma consoled them with a smile. Then he and Otto glanced at each other, and the 2 people once again walked in front of Xiaoyan. Seeing Fa Ma and Otto's movement, all eyes in the main hall slowly turned toward Xiaoyan. On the side, Shui Mei and Lin Fei were also curiously staring at Xiaoyan. They also wanted to know what tier the medicinal pill refined by this person, who could manipulate a mysterious flame, would be. Casually picking up the parchment scroll on Xiaoyan's stone platform and opening it, Fa Ma glanced lightly, his old face slightly changing, and he said in surprise, "Power accumulation. Pill." Hearing this, Otto was also stunned, then suddenly understood and said with a laugh, "No wonder that little fellow took a little more time. So you chose this medicinal recipe." Hearing the name Power Accumulation Pill, Shui Mei and Lin Fei also shook their heads helplessly. Putting aside everything else, just the difficulty of this recipe tier alone meant they were inferior by 1 tier. TSK, that little fellow is capable, He can even successfully refine the Power Accumulation Pill. This medicinal pill is difficult for even some official tier 1 alchemists to refine, Fa Ma fearfully licked his lips and sighed. He poured out the medicinal pill from the jade bottle. Immediately, a glossy, light yellow medicinal pill playfully rolled out. The medicinal pill was about the size of a thumb, light yellow all over, with a faint wave-like blue-green pattern intertwined within it, like a spreading ripple, looking somewhat peculiar. Pill vein. Looking at that blue-green ripple pattern, Fa Ma and Otto once again sighed in shock. During pill refinement, a pill usually only reaches the highest purity and luster when it is refined to a level that can produce this kind of pill vein. The words pill vein reached their ears, and Shui Mei and Lin Fei immediately knew that in this examination, it would be absolutely difficult for the two of them to compare with this young man. Congratulations, Xiaoyan. You have passed the Tier 1 Alchemist examination. Putting the medicinal pill back into the jade bottle, Fa Ma slowly breathed a sigh of relief, and said with a smile to the young man. Hearing this, everyone sitting there cast glances of envy and awe towards the lucky young man on the stone platform. About that. Hearing this, Xiaoyan opened his eyes wide, slightly tilted his head, and said softly, "About that. Can I continue with the Tier 2 Alchemist examination?" At the young man's soft words, the smiles on Fa Ma and Otto's faces instantly froze. Continue to apply for the Tier 2 Alchemist examination. Xiaoyan's words not only made Fa Ma and Otto's faces go blank, but even Shui Mei and Lin Fei on the side suddenly stopped their movements, looked up, their faces filled with astonishment, their tempting red lips slightly parted, staring blankly at the young man on the stone platform. Inside the main hall, all eyes stared blankly at the young man. If Xiaoyan successfully passing the Tier 1 Alchemist examination earlier had already filled their hearts with endless awe, then his current request truly made everyone feel utterly stunned. A 19-year-old Tier 1 alchemist, although rare, was not unheard of in the Jiama Empire. But a 19-year-old Tier 2 alchemist, now that was truly a phoenix feather and Qilin horn, extremely rare, One must know that even the Pill King Guhi inside the Jiama Empire was only just becoming a Tier 1 alchemist at that age, If Xiaoyan truly successfully passed the Tier 2 Alchemist examination today, wouldn't that mean that his future achievements would be even greater than the Pill King Gu? Goodness! It seems we have just witnessed a monster rising from the Black Rock City Alchemist Guild. Inside the main hall, everyone glanced at each other, then said with a bitter, soft laugh, You mustn't underestimate the conditions for the Tier 2 Alchemist examination. To pass the Tier 2 Alchemist examination, you not only need to refine a Tier 2 medicinal pill, but your own strength must reach the Dou Master level. Dou Master. Have you reached it? Turning her head, Lin Fei looked at the young man's smiling face, and couldn't help but say with a frown. Dou Master, you say? Smiling slightly, Xiaoyan looked at Lin Fei's beautiful and captivating face, and said with a long laugh, I just want to try it out. Whether I can achieve it or not is not too big of a deal. Do you truly want to take the Tier 2 Alchemist examination again? After Lin Fei finished speaking, seeing Xiaoyan's expression still showing no sign of giving up, Fa Ma and Otto glanced at each other and asked in a deep voice. Shouldn't be a problem, right? Xiaoyan stretched his neck and said with a chuckle. How confident are you? Otto's expression was now also slightly solemn. If this little fellow in front of him truly passed the Tier 2 alchemist examination, then he would be a truly unfathomable talent. Perhaps the future of the Jiama Empire's alchemy world would produce an alchemist even stronger than the Pill King Gu He. This would undoubtedly be a sensational piece of news for the Empire's alchemy world. 5 parts. I guess. Xiaoyan pursed his mouth. He was currently analyzing the probability of successfully refining a Tier 2 medicinal pill. Only now, based on some figures, did he report it. Because he was afraid of speaking too soon, the figure Xiaoyan gave was a bit cautious. However, even though this figure was already cautious in Xiaoyan's heart, when he reported it, Otto and Fa Ma's bodies still simultaneously shook. And some other people's faces turned pale. Refining a Tier 2 medicinal pill. There is a considerable probability of failure. Even some alchemists present here would not dare to estimate that their success rate in refining a Tier 2 medicinal pill could reach 5 parts or more. However, the young man in front of them said this with a smiling face. Instantly, a hint of doubt flashed in the hearts of the several Tier 2 alchemists in the main hall. Clearly, they were not overly convinced by Xiaoyan's words, even though he possessed this somewhat peculiar flame. 5 parts. Whispering to herself, Xue Mei slightly turned her head. Looking at the young man's tall figure on the stone platform, she quietly said in her heart, is this person too arrogant? What about it? Can I continue the examination? If not, it's fine. After all, I'm only temporarily staying in Black Rock City. If I get the chance, I'll go to another place next time. Seeing Fa Ma and Otto not answering, Xiaoyan helplessly shook his head. Then he said, wait a minute. Hearing Xiaoyan's words, Fa Ma quickly said, are you kidding? This was a person who could give the Black Rock City Alchemist Guild a great opportunity to be recognized by others. He would not let Xiaoyan run to take the examination in another city. Wouldn't that be foolishly handing this opportunity over to someone else? Someone, immediately prepare the procedures for the Tier 2 alchemist examination. Once again glancing at Otto, both of them saw a hint of excitement flash in the other's eyes. Fa Ma waved his hand. He shouted softly. Hearing this, several alchemists at the back quickly stepped out of line, and then quickly entered the side door inside the main hall. On the exterior of the side door were the words Tier 2 Alchemist Examination. Good. I will let you continue the examination, little fellow. You absolutely mustn't be playing a trick on us too old men. Clapping his hands, Fa Ma turned back and said with a smile to Xiaoyan, I will try my best. All right, I heard that after passing the examination and registering at the guild, one can enjoy some special privileges from the guild. Xiaoyan walked out of the stone platform and asked with a chuckle. Haha, that's right. Alchemists refining medicinal pills always need some strange and exotic rare herbs. But it's difficult for one person to travel everywhere every day to collect all these things. Therefore, if you register at our Jiama Empire Alchemist Guild, you can enjoy the privilege of exchange. For example, you are refining a certain medicinal pill, and lack one type of medicinal ingredient, and another alchemist just happens to have this type of medicinal ingredient. Then, under the condition that both parties are willing, our guild can complete the transaction for you. Of course, the prerequisite for this is that you must offer a satisfactory item for the other party to exchange. Fa Ma nodded and said with a smile, of course, the higher your tier, the more privileges you can enjoy. Therefore, if you want to be able to exchange for the items you need from others without any obstacles, then you must strive to increase your tier. That's truly not bad. Xiaoyan's face showed a slight hint of joy as he nodded. This method of the Alchemist Guild would undoubtedly save many alchemists time from traveling everywhere. And he happened to lack many things right now. After passing the examination, he definitely had to ask Fa Ma for all the help he could get. Alright, the Tier 2 Alchemist examination has been arranged. Follow me. Turning around, Fa Ma looked at the few alchemists walking back from the room. Seeing them nod to him, he then said with a smile. Mm. Xiaoyan nodded and then followed Fa Ma toward the small room. Otto also followed closely behind. As he entered the door, he turned back and said with a smile to everyone outside who was straining their necks, "The Tier 2 Alchemist examination is different from the Tier 1 Alchemist examination. Therefore, you cannot casually enter. Wait right outside. There will be an answer very quickly." "Master, let me go in and watch." Hearing Otto's words, Lin Fei's face flushed with urgency. And she rushed forward, tugging Otto's sleeve and saying coquettishly, "This is the rule of the Alchemist Guild from the beginning. I can't do anything about it. You just wait outside." Shaking his head helplessly, Otto lightly flicked his sleeve, pushing Lin Fei back a small step, then quickly entered behind the door, slamming the door shut. What's so special about it? I won't watch then." Looking at the tightly shut door, Lin Fei huffed and muttered in dissatisfaction. Turning around, Lin Fei looked at Xue Mei's indifferent face. She walked back and forth a few steps, then quietly said next to her, "Do you think that guy can succeed?" "How would I know? Didn't he say so himself?" 5 parts confidence. That's not bad. Lightly glancing at Lin Fei next to her, Xue Mei said calmly. Lin Fei pouted. Her soft body jumped up onto the stone platform. Her long legs were exposed under her purple gown, slightly swaying, creating a tempting snow-white curve, causing the eyes of some men in the main hall to gently turn towards her. I thought we were quite good for becoming a Tier 1 alchemist in 2 years. I didn't think a more monstrous guy would suddenly appear. He's younger than us, but he actually has the qualification to take the Tier 2 Alchemist examination. Isn't this too much of a blow?" Turning back, Lin Fei looked at her competitor of many years and said helplessly. Hearing this, Xue Mei's calm face also showed a fleeting hint of agreement. She lightly sighed and said in a low voice, "It truly is a big blow. Didn't you say at the beginning that no one of the younger generation in Black Rock City could surpass you? Now that he has appeared, I remember what you said at the beginning, something about nurturing." Her dark eyes rolled once, and Lin Fei suddenly said, "Sorry, he is not from Black Rock City." A hint of a blush flashed on her face. Then a hint of cunning flashed in her beautiful eyes. Xue Mei smiled calmly at Lin Fei. "Humph. You win." Lightly huffing, Lin Fei's jade hand brushed the bangs on her forehead and said with a smile, "But with this guy's talent, you are not worthy of him. Although your master is one of the top figures in Black Rock City, you also know, how strong must his mentor be to be able to mentor such a monstrous disciple?" "Not interested. If you like him, you go for it yourself. Grandmaster Otto's reputation is not inferior to my master's, is it? Furthermore, your father is the city lord of Black Rock City, ah." Xue Mei said with a smile. Her calm words made Lin Fei on the side clench her teeth. Source of the story, Triunful. PSH, the people pursuing me in Black Rock City are lined up for 30 miles outside the city. I'm not that idle to go look for him. Glaring with her beautiful eyes, Lin Fei said charmingly with a smile. Smiling calmly, Xue Mei's willow-like eyebrows furrowed. And her gaze shifted towards the large door. Her jade hand quietly clenched, and she said softly, "They're out. The examination is over." Hearing this, Lin Fei's spirit was also shaken. And she quickly turned her gaze toward the large door. The wooden door creaked open, and Fa Ma and Otto walked out first. The two people glanced at each other, then lightly sighed and shook their heads. Seeing the appearance of the two, Lin Fei and Xue Mei frowned. Failed. This little fellow's alchemy talent is truly stunning and brilliant. Alas, I can't help but admire him. Raising his head, Fa Ma spread his hands, and said with a smile, "It seems that our Black Rock City Alchemist Guild has produced the youngest Tier 2 alchemist in the past several hundred years." Looking at Fa Lane Ku and Otto's expressions of awe, the throats of everyone in the main hall involuntarily rolled a little. Judging by the demeanor of these two, it was clear that the young man's second-tier alchemist assessment had passed. This fellow is truly terrifying. Everyone exchanged glances, sighing softly in their hearts. A 19-year-old second-tier alchemist. Could this be a new record for the Jiama Empire? This guy, he really succeeded. He's 19, and he's already reached the Dou Master level. How is this possible? Lin Fei's red lips slightly parted as she mumbled in astonishment. Beside her, Xue Mei also nodded slightly. This guy, he couldn't be this monstrous, could he? Seeing the shocked expressions of everyone in the main hall, Fa Lane Ku and Otto could only exchange wry smiles. Having observed Xiaoyan's pill refinement up close, the two of them truly couldn't help but feel awestruck by the refining talent he displayed. Although this was Xiaoyan's first time refining the assessment's formula, his superb control over the flame's heat was in no way inferior to any official second-tier alchemist. Moreover, during the refining process, his precision in extracting the essence of various medicinal materials was extremely accurate. If a seasoned second-tier alchemist with rich experience had shown such a performance, Fa Lane Ku and Otto wouldn't have been so astonished. Yet, the fellow before them was merely 19 years old. The original source of the story is Thien Tam. At that age, they were still being taught the basic differentiation of medicinal materials by their own masters. He really is a disheartening fellow. Now I am even more curious as to which Grand Master could possibly have taught such an exceptional disciple. Fa Lane Ku said with a wry smile. Indeed. Although this young man's talent for pill refining is outstanding, an unpolished jade, no matter how beautiful, is difficult to turn into a jewel. His mysterious master is also very skilled. If it were the two of us teaching Xiaoyan, we absolutely would not have achieved this kind of result, Otto said comparatively. However, his violet-colored flame is not a heavenly flame, Yihua. Although it's much stronger than an ordinary flame, it doesn't possess the same domineering and unusual qualities of a heavenly flame. Fa Lane Ku recalled Xiaoyan's pill refining process, frowning slightly, and said with some doubt. It certainly doesn't look like a heavenly flame. But this is not important. There are countless eccentric and extraordinary people in the Dou Qi continent. There are always some mysterious things that have not been discovered by others. Although the violet flame is very strong, it is only somewhat stronger than the Dou Qi flame of an alchemist of the same rank. Compared to a heavenly flame, the difference is undoubtedly too vast. Otto said with a laugh. Nodding, Fa Lane Ku turned his head, looked towards the inner room, and smiled. That young man. Once you've collected your things, come out. As Fa Lane Ku's voice faded, Xiaoyan's figure slowly emerged from the inner room. Gently dusting off the slight medicinal powder adhering to his ordinary clothes, his gaze swept over the faces of everyone in the main hall. He smiled faintly. Seeing Xiaoyan look their way, the alchemists in the main hall also offered him friendly smiles. Although their status and position in Black Rock City were almost top tier, And they were usually greeted with reverence. They did not dare to be negligent in front of this young man, who had demonstrated such refining talent. After all, who's to say that in the future this young man's achievements wouldn't surpass the two grandmaster alchemists, Thien Tam and Otto, by a great margin. Seeing Xiaoyan step out, Thien Tam waved his hand at his subordinates. One person quickly hurried out of the main hall. A moment later he returned, carrying an exquisite black robe on a jade plate. This is the specialized attire of a second-tier alchemist. The material of this robe is soaked in the guild's medicinal nurture pool before being tailored. Therefore, do not underestimate it. After wearing it, the medicinal liquid soaked in the fabric will slowly disperse a peculiar scent upon contact with the air. This scent can help the wearer maintain a state of clear-mindedness at all times. Furthermore, under the stimulation of this scent, the skin on the body will become somewhat sensitive. Similarly, this can make it easier for the alchemist to control the flame's heat when refining pills. Taking the jade plate, Thien Tam recounted the robe's functions in detail with a hint of pride. At the same time, it also possesses the function of immunity to certain toxins. Also, having undergone special tailoring by the guild, this alchemist robe has a defensive power that is far superior to ordinary armor. If it weren't for its rare and expensive manufacturing value, making it difficult to produce in large quantities, it would have long been seized by the Empire for military equipment. Hearing Thien Tam's introduction, Xiaoyan was somewhat surprised. He hadn't expected a robe that looked merely luxurious to possess so many enticing functions. No wonder so many alchemists are eager to join the Alchemist Guild. This kind of benefit is truly tempting. Taking the exquisite black robe, Xiaoyan glanced at it. He only saw that a tiny alchemist emblem was pinned to the chest area. On the emblem, a classical medicine cauldron pattern and two mercury-like lines continuously pulsed, looking like a living thing. His hand stroked the black robe. The soft texture felt like a young woman's supple skin, extraordinarily wonderful. TSK. Alchemists, they truly deserve to be the noblest profession on the Dou Qi continent. Just this robe alone is probably worth no less than 100,000 gold coins to manufacture. Turning the black robe over and over, reluctantly letting go, Xiaoyan took off his ordinary coarse outer garment, and then put on the black robe. Immediately, when the black robe touched his skin, it felt like plunging into water. Cool and comfortable. Furthermore, a faint exotic fragrance silently entered his nostrils, causing his slightly weary spirit to perk up. Having undergone nearly a year of strenuous training, Xiaoyan's physique had gradually become taller and sturdier. Although his face still looked somewhat thin, wearing the black robe now gave him a faint sense of elegance. The last hint of childishness on his face was now perfectly concealed. Watching him, after putting on the alchemist robe, seemingly radiate light, Thien Tam and Otto on the side also smiled and nodded. Evidently, they were satisfied with Xiaoyan's current appearance. In the main hall, Xuemei and Lin Fei were still staring at Xiaoyan. Seeing his transformation, a hint of surprise flashed across their faces. Their eyes lingered a little longer on Xiaoyan's subtly smiling face. Good. Personally experiencing the benefits brought by the alchemist robe, Xiaoyan nodded and praised endlessly. Seeing Xiaoyan's satisfied demeanor, Thien Tam smiled lightly. The influence of alchemists was truly immense. To gather the formidable power of this noble profession, the Alchemist Guild truly spared no effort. All right, the assessment is over, everyone can disperse now. Thien Tam waved his hand toward everyone in the main hall, then turned to Xiaoyan and smiled. Do you have time? If so, I think we might be able to have a chat. Hearing this, Xiaoyan smiled and nodded, saying with a smile, that's good. It just so happens that I also have something I need the guild master to help me with. Xuemei, Lin Fei, the two of you and the other young men who passed the assessment go and claim your first-tier alchemist emblems and robes. We have some matters to attend to, and cannot go with you." Smiling at Xue Mei, Fa Lane Ku and Otto exchanged glances, then the two led the way toward the outside of the main hall. Seeing this completely different treatment, Lin Fei could only nod helplessly, then made a disgruntled face at Fa Lane Ku's retreating back, muttering, "Unfair. Let's go. Don't complain anymore. He has the qualifications for master to be biased. If you are dissatisfied, you go and take the second-tier alchemist assessment immediately." Xue Mei stood up and walked out of the main hall, saying with a soft laugh, "Humph. What's so special about that?" Lin Fei lightly snorted. Although she followed suit, her tone clearly lacked much conviction. The first-tier alchemist assessment was already a stretch for her, let alone the second tier. She isn't unaware of her own limits. Inside the quiet study, Fa Lane Ku said to Xiao Yan with a beaming smile. Casually taking a seat, Xiao Yan got straight to the point and said with a smile, "Two masters, do you have any questions you need to ask? As long as they don't involve my limits, I believe I won't conceal anything." Speaking here, a hint of cunningness flashed across Xiao Yan's eyes. Where these limits lay was something he was free to set. You really are a cunning and cautious young man." Shaking his head with a laugh. Having lived for decades, Fa Lane Ku naturally understood the meaning in Xiao Yan's tone. "Since you have now registered with the guild, we naturally need to perform some official duties." "Well, the information you registered earlier, regarding your master, seems a bit inaccurate, doesn't it? As far as I can recall, in the Jiama Empire, there doesn't seem to be any Grandmaster Alchemist named Yao Lao," Fa Lane Ku asked with a smile, holding up the information Xiao Yan had registered earlier. "I apologize. When I left, my master instructed me not to expose his information. Moreover, he has never registered with the guild," Xiao Yan said, spreading his hands. Hearing this, Fa Lane Ku and Otto both shook their heads helplessly. It seemed impossible to extract any information about his master from this young man's mouth. "All right, since you don't want to say, we won't press you. In the Jiama Empire, there are indeed some recluse powerhouses who prefer not to be known by others." Letting out a sigh, Otto pondered for a moment and asked, "One last question, regarding the violet-colored flame you controlled, you should know that your flame is not a heavenly flame, right?" If that were the case, it would be boastful." Shaking his head with a laugh, Xiao Yan said, "Half truth and half lie. The violet flame was something I acquired through a fortunate coincidence from the purple spirit-winged Lion King. Don't ask me how exactly I found it. I accidentally encountered it in the magical Beast Mountain range, and was hit by some kind of fire blast. If not for some life-saving measure, I might have been incinerated on the spot. Only afterwards did I discover that I had an extra wisp of violet fire in my body." Purple spirit-winged Lion King. Hearing this, Fa Lane Ku and Otto were both stunned, then suddenly understood and nodded. No wonder. So it's the violet fire of the purple spirit-winged Lion King. I wondered why I vaguely sensed a wild, savage nature to it. You are truly lucky to have managed to acquire something like this. In the past, quite a few alchemists attempted to get their hands on its flame, but sadly, they all failed. Forget it. After asking for half a day, this guy essentially hasn't given up a single useful piece of information." Waving his hand, Fa Lane Ku said helplessly, "Tell us what you need." Hee. Grinning, Xiao Yan smacked his lips, his eyes fixed intently on the two, and he said softly, "I need a certain item. I wonder if the two masters could help me check if any other alchemists possess it." "What is it?" "Ice Spirit Cold Spring." Ice Spirit Cold Spring. Hearing the name from Xiao Yan's mouth, Fa Lane Ku and Otto were visibly stunned for a moment, then asked in astonishment, "Young man, Ice Spirit Cold Spring is extremely rare, a rare heavenly treasure. Moreover, with your current strength, you absolutely don't need this kind of item." Xiaoyan smiled, saying vaguely, "I'm sure I need this item very much." "Two masters, do you know if anyone in the Alchemist Guild possesses it? If someone does, I can offer a high price for a transaction." "High price?" "Xiaoyan, you must know that Ice Spirit Cold Spring is not something that can be bought with mere gold coins. Furthermore, even if someone possesses it, they would be difficult to persuade to trade it away." Fa Lane shook his head and said, I naturally know that, but I still ask the two masters to investigate. If someone truly has it, I can certainly offer an item that will satisfy him." Xiaoyan nodded, speaking with a polite tone. Seeing Xiaoyan's persistence, Fa Lane frowned. He then looked at Otto, who nodded helplessly. "Wait for a moment." Otto stood up, said a word to Xiaoyan, and then turned and walked into the adjacent study. This old fellow is the Vice Guild Master of the Black Rock City Alchemist Guild. Although he doesn't do much on ordinary days and rarely handles the guild affairs, he usually takes charge of other transactions. Fa Lane watched Otto enter the study, then looked at Xiaoyan and smiled. Smiling and nodding, Xiaoyan rested his hand on the armrest of the chair, his fingers subconsciously tapping rhythmically on the armrest, his face showing a hint of anticipation. Slowly picking up the teacup and taking a sip, Fa Lane's expression was relaxed. Looking at Xiaoyan's calm demeanor, he couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. Is the Ice Spirit Cold Spring really that important to him? After waiting quietly for a long time, Otto emerged from the room, holding a thick, ancient book. He placed it on the table, turned to Xiaoyan, and said helplessly, "I apologize. I searched through all the recent transaction records in the Jiama Empire, and I didn't find anyone who possessed the Ice Spirit Cold Spring. That item is truly very rare, and it requires extremely strict preservation. I remember that a fourth-tier alchemist once luckily obtained some Ice Spirit Cold Spring in an extremely cold place. However, due to careless storage, it evaporated into a cloud of white mist and dissipated," Otto said with a hint of regret. Hearing this, Xiaoyan let out a sigh, a look of disappointment appearing on his face. He shook his head lightly and said with a wry smile, "If there really isn't any, then so be it. I truly apologize for troubling the two of you." Seeing Xiaoyan's disappointed expression, Fa Lane couldn't help but lean over and quietly ask Otto, "Are you sure there isn't any?" Patting the thick book with his hand, Otto shook his head, "Absolutely none. If there's none here, I suggest you try the auction house. If you're lucky, you might just happen to come across it," Fa Lane consoled him. Nodding with a wry smile, Xiaoyan knew very well in his heart that if even the Alchemist Guild didn't have this item, even with good luck, it would be difficult to find this kind of heavenly treasure at an auction house. Sigh. Since the item I need is not available, I will take my leave. Xiaoyan stood up somewhat dejectedly, cupped his hands in a salute to the two, and prepared to turn and leave. Looking at Xiaoyan's disheartened figure, Otto shook his head helplessly. He then pondered and suddenly spoke, "Wait a moment." Xiaoyan was slightly taken aback. He turned around in confusion, looking at the contemplative Otto. "Are you truly very much in need of the Ice Spirit Cold Spring?" Otto asked with a frown. "Yes. Very much." He nodded heavily. Seeing Otto's thoughtful demeanor, Xiaoyan's heart stirred, and his voice carried a hint of pleasant surprise. "Master Otto, do you perhaps have the Ice Spirit Cold Spring?" On the side, Fa Lane was also surprised, staring intently at Otto. Evidently, he was also unaware of the situation. I personally don't have that item." Shaking his head with a laugh, Otto looked at Xiaoyan's disappointed face, and couldn't help but say with a smile, "However, I did see this item at the place Of a peculiar fellow. Oh? Hearing this, Xiaoyan's eyes suddenly lit up. He quickly asked, "Who is he? Where is he?" "Ah. I must warn you first. To get that item from his hands. If you don't have something that satisfies him, it's highly likely you won't succeed," Otto said with a smile. "I will do my best," Xiaoyan said hesitantly. Since he didn't know what price the other party would demand, he naturally didn't dare to speak rashly. "That old fellow. You're not talking about that strangely secretive, life-treasuring Gute, are you?" Fa Lane frowned tightly, suddenly asking in surprise. "Yes, that eccentric old man. Last time I went to his place, I seemed to hear him mention the ice spirit cold spring. However, that old fellow is truly petty. He wouldn't even let me take a glance at it," Otto said with narrowed eyes and a smile. "If he truly possesses the ice spirit cold spring, I also believe that Xiaoyan will find it difficult to successfully trade for it." Fa Lane shook his head helplessly, looking at Xiaoyan with a hint of pity in his eyes. "Then who is this Gute?" Feeling a bit unnatural under Fa Lane Ku's scrutinizing gaze, Xiaoyan asked with some unease. "That guy is also an alchemist. Although he is only a third tier, the things he hoards are coveted by all the alchemists in the Jiama Empire." Otto shook his head and smiled. "He's not a member of the Alchemist Guild?" Xiaoyan asked in surprise. "No, that guy's personality is very odd. Despite his decent refining talent, he is obsessed with and hoards all sorts of heavenly treasures, which is why he remains stuck at the third-tier stage. This obsession has almost become a sickness. Once he discovers that someone else has something good, that guy will incessantly harass them, causing everyone quite a headache." Fa Lane gave a wry smile. His demeanor suggested that he had personally experienced this situation. "Hee, whose fault is it that you were so foolish back then, actually showing off the violet blood spirit Ganoderma you painstakingly obtained? TSK, but that old fellow Gute truly has patience. He pestered you for the violet blood spirit Ganoderma for a whole year, haha." Seeming to recall the amusing incident from back then, Otto's face showed a slight hint of schadenfreude as he laughed. Sigh. Fa Lane shook his head helplessly, his face slightly sullen. "Ah. Your ranks are higher than his. How dare he act so presumptuously?" Seeing the helpless expressions of the two, Xiaoyan asked in confusion. "Our ranks are indeed slightly higher than his. However, that old fellow has a very famous brother. In the Jiama Empire, no one dares to provoke him," Fa Lane said with a wry smile. "A brother? Who is it?" Hearing this, Xiaoyan was surprised. Who could have such capability, that even two fourth-tier alchemists wouldn't dare to offend him? The story you are reading is sourced from website name. Who else could it be other than Pilking Guhi, Dan Wang Guhi? Otto rolled his eyes and curled his lip. If it weren't for this brother's protection, who knows how many people would have already raided that guy's treasure room? Ah. Guhi. No wonder. Slightly startled, Xiaoyan suddenly realized the reason. In the Jiama Empire, Pilking Guhi truly wielded immense influence. Although that old fellow is annoying, his nature is not bad. He is just a bit stubborn and set in his ways. Moreover, he absolutely hates it when people mention Guhi in front of him, even though he knows he benefits from Guhi's help. If someone mentions Guhi in front of him, he immediately gets angry and chases them away. Therefore, you must be careful. If you provoke him, even if you offer a better heavenly treasure, it will be difficult to exchange for the ice spirit cold spring, Fa Lane reminded him. Is he in Black Rock City? Xiaoyan asked anxiously. Yes, that's right. Smiling and nodding, Otto glanced at Xiaoyan and smiled. Are you really going to find him? I have no choice. I truly need the ice spirit cold spring. Even if he demands an exorbitant price, I'm afraid I'll have to let him fleece me, Xiaoyan said with a helpless, wry smile. Pity the young man. Others try to avoid him, and you're willingly sending yourself to him. Patting Xiaoyan's shoulder sympathetically, Otto turned his head, and said to Fa Lane Ke, I'll take Xiaoyan then. I doubt you want to meet that old fellow. Go on, go on. If you see him, tell him this, he'd better not come to the Alchemist Guild. Otherwise, even with Guhi protecting him, I will still find trouble with him. Fa Lane Ke curled his lip. Evidently, he was somewhat afraid of that annoying fellow. Grinning with a hint of schadenfreude, Otto looked at Xiaoyan and said, Let's go. Follow me. I'll take you to find that guy. Whether you succeed or not in the end depends on you. Hearing this, Xiaoyan nodded gratefully. At the same time, he felt a bit lucky. It was a good thing he came to take the alchemist assessment. Otherwise, if he had to search for the ice spirit cold spring across the entire continent, he wouldn't even know where to look. Otto led him out of the Alchemist Guild. Along the way, people constantly greeted the indifferent Otto. When they saw Xiaoyan following behind Otto, they were all stunned. Their eyes lingered on the second-tier alchemist emblem and the pitch-black robe. Everyone looked at Xiaoyan with a sense of shock. Being a second-tier alchemist at such a young age truly shook them to their core. Ignoring the shocked gazes of the crowd, Xiaoyan followed Otto through about 10 intersections in Black Rock City, making his head a little dizzy. It wasn't until they reached a somewhat remote corner on the south side of the city that they stopped in front of a peculiar building. Looking up at the odd building, Otto let out a sigh of relief. He turned to Xiaoyan and said, This is Guti's residence. I'll go in first. I remind you again, you must absolutely not wander around. Waving his hand at Xiaoyan, Otto advanced 2 steps, pushed open the room door, but before he could enter, a fierce stream of force carrying black powder boldly sprayed out from inside the house. The sudden change caused Xiaoyan to be slightly startled. He carefully retreated a few steps, his right hand quickly placed on the black heavy ruler behind his back. Inside the room, the powder was about to spray out of the room. Otto pouted, his arm swung up, and a more robust stream of force appeared, then pushed all the black powder back entirely. The black powder gradually dissipated. Only then did the room become visible. Clapping his hands, Otto tilted his head and smiled at Xiaoyan, that old fellow really likes to tease people. Although the black powder just now won't poison you, if it touches your skin, it will cause a very uncomfortable itch. Xiaoyan slowly let go of the black heavy ruler and smiled bitterly, shaking his head. This old fellow was indeed a bit eccentric. Come on in. Follow behind me, and don't touch anything randomly. Otto led the way into the room. Xiaoyan briefly hesitated, then decided to follow. Walking into the room, a loud sound of the door closing echoed, causing Xiaoyan to helplessly shake his head again. His gaze swept across the room at this moment. Following Otto, after being attacked several times, they finally reached the upper floor of the building. Finishing the last flight of stairs, Xiaoyan also breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at the wooden door at the end of the corridor, he tilted his head and asked Otto, This must be the place, right? Otto nodded, lowered his head and glanced at the staircase, which had been melted into several holes by a corrosive liquid. The corner of his mouth slightly twitched, and he gritted his teeth and said, This. You old bastard. You don't properly learn alchemy, but instead learn these hooligan tricks. Hearing the sound of complaint, the corner of Xiaoyan's mouth also curled up. He couldn't help but chuckle amusingly a few times. Properly learning alchemy, my ass. Which one of my tricks isn't proper? Don't think that because you are the vice president of the Alchemist Guild, I don't dare to kick you out. Just as Xiaoyan was chuckling. Amusingly, an old man's angry scolding suddenly rang out from the room at the end of the corridor. "You are the old bastard." Rolling his eyes, Otto angrily waved his sleeve, bringing Xiaoyan to the room at the end of the corridor. He fiercely stomped his foot and kicked directly at the door. Clang! His foot kicked directly at the door, and a clear sound of steel echoed. Seeing this, the corner of Xiaoyan's eye slightly twitched. Looking at Otto's wrinkled face, he very quickly retreated a few steps. "Ha ha! You old fellow. Last time you kicked a door to pieces. So I asked someone to replace it with a refined steel door. Ha ha, do you like it?" Inside the room, the old man's voice rang out again, only this time the laughter carried a hint of schadenfreude. "You old son of a bitch." Otto's wrinkled face inhaled a breath of cold air. His complexion turned from red to green. Doqi slowly surged from his body, finally enveloping Otto in it. Like a moon of fire. What strong Doqi! His strength is at least the Do spirit level. Looking at the Doqi rising from Otto's body, Xiaoyan once again retreated 2 steps, sighing in awe. His heart. His body enveloped in Doqi, Otto once again fiercely kicked the steel door. Thud. A heavy sound echoed in the corridor. The steel door was directly kicked into the room by the Do. Chi. Ah. You old bastard, you really dare. Looking at the kicked-off door, a sound of rebuke immediately came from inside. Humph, Otto coldly huffed with a green face. His legs were somewhat uncoordinated as he walked straight into the room. His gaze swept around and finally stopped at a very sloppy old man in the room. He said with a cold laugh, "Gute, do you believe that one day I will publicize all the information about the treasures in your collection?" "Heh, don't. I was just joking." Hearing this, the sloppy, grey-clothed old man Gute quickly waved his sleeve, stepped forward and said with a conciliatory smile. Humph, shaking his sleeve, Otto turned to the door and said, "Xiaoyan, come in." You brought someone else. What do you want to do?" Seeing Otto's movement, Gute glared and asked cautiously. Otto pouted, ignoring Gute's question. Slowly walking into the room, Xiaoyan's eyes habitually swept around. In the room, he saw some items displayed on a glass table, and his face showed a hint of surprise. Firecore 7-leaf flower. Blood spirit grass. Blue rock heart stone. Looking at the series of rare treasures that were considered hard to find, Xiaoyan couldn't help but take a long breath. The collection here was truly extremely rich. Heh. Little fellow, what are you looking at? Trying to scheme for my treasures? Seeing Xiaoyan's expression, Gute quickly jumped up, glaring fiercely at Xiaoyan. Smiling awkwardly, Xiaoyan retracted his gaze. His eyes stared intently at the sloppy old man in front of him. It was hard to imagine that this frail old man was the biological elder brother of the famous Pill King Guhi in the Jiama Empire. Ahem. Sorry, Grandmaster Gute. I've never seen so many rare treasures in my life. It seems that with these items, no one in the Jiama Empire can compare to you. Xiaoyan said with a smile. Little fellow, you have a sweet tongue. But what you said is relatively true. Hearing Xiaoyan's flattering words, Gute's wrinkled face softened a bit. He continued speaking without any politeness. What is the matter that brings you to my place? Say it quickly. My work is very busy. Turning around, he walked to a place piled high with items and sat down on a chair nearby. Gute asked with a frown. It's this little fellow. He has something to ask you. Otto rolled his eyes. Looking at the dusty chair, he shook his head helplessly and remained standing. Oh? I don't recognize him. Could it be that you have some strange treasure to sell me? Heh, very good. As long as it satisfies me, I will definitely give you a reasonable price. Gu Ti's eyes slightly lit up. He stared intently at the finger on Xiaoyan's hand that was wearing a ring, and said with a chuckle. Ahem. No, Grandmaster Gu Ti. I didn't come to sell treasures. I wanted to ask you something. Xiaoyan shook his head, focusing his eyes on Gu Ti's face, and said softly, I wanted to ask, do you happen to have the ice spirit cold spring in your possession? Hearing this, Gu Ti was first stunned, then shook his head like a windmill. No. I don't have it. You've come to the wrong person. I don't have that item. Seeing Gu Ti's uncooperative manner, Xiaoyan smiled bitterly and shook his head. When he mentioned the ice spirit cold spring, he clearly saw a flash of surprise on Gu Ti's face. Perhaps the old man was surprised as to why he knew the old man had the ice spirit cold spring. You old fellow, stop fooling around. Didn't you tell me last time that you exchanged a small bottle of ice spirit cold spring from someone else? I remember it very clearly. Otto said with a laugh. Scram. You old bastard. Don't come to my place anymore. Being exposed in his lie, Gu Ti immediately became angry and ashamed, scolding. Otto waved his hand, looked at Xiaoyan and said, I've brought you to him. How you managed to get him to trade the ice spirit cold spring to you is entirely up to you. I'll wait for you outside. After speaking, Otto walked out of the room. Reaching the door, his hand slapped the wall a few times, and a wooden door slowly rose, a moment later covering the room. Seeing Otto leave, Xiaoyan nodded helplessly. He waved his hand, brushing the dust off the chair, then sat down opposite Gu Ti. Looking at the closed door, Gu Ti glanced at Xiaoyan and muttered, Little fellow, don't think I'll trade the ice spirit cold spring with you. Grandmaster Gu Ti, I believe that there is no transaction in this world that cannot be successful. It is only because the other party did not offer an item that moved them. Xiaoyan said with a smile. Oh? If you already know that, then what are you doing here? Don't tell me you need the ice spirit cold spring to save someone's life. I won't care about that either. His pitch-black eyebrows slightly furrowed. Gu Ti glanced at Xiaoyan and chuckled. There was a hint of mockery in it. Saying this, the old man himself didn't believe Xiaoyan could offer an item that would move him. Xiaoyan's hand was stroking his chin. He secretly thought, what item would move old Gu Ti? Ha ha, this little fellow is somewhat interesting. But don't you dare take out any techniques or do skills. Although they are very precious, I am not interested. What I like most are those magical treasures and rare herbs. Looking at Xiaoyan's appearance, Gu Ti was somewhat interested. His finger pointed to the area where the strange treasures were stored, and he laughed with narrowed eyes. Xiaoyan's finger gently tapped the tabletop. After a moment of silence, his finger gently rubbed the ring. His finger went into the ring, and a small jade bottle appeared in his palm. Looking at the turquoise jade bottle in Xiaoyan's hand, Gu Ti frowned. A hint of curiosity vaguely appeared in his eyes. Caressing the jade bottle with some reluctance, Xiaoyan slowly opened the lid of the bottle, then placed it on the tabletop. Immediately, a stream of purple vapor swirled up. And the humidity of the small room also seemed to increase significantly. Sensing the warmth of the surrounding air, and staring intently at the aura of the purple flame, Gu Ti's eyes slightly contracted.